So this is the parts and wholes in face recognition. The authors are James M. Tanaka and Martha M. J. Farah. So defining holistic processing, they said face recognition should be more being based on holistic. Therefore, a part of the face, such as the nose or mouth, an isolated feature in essence, will be significantly easier and more recognized than the whole face compared to being an isolated part of the face. They said holistic processing deals with the overall shape of the face, and it's not compromised to specific face parts, but more so as an entire face in general. So they wanted to investigate does recognition rely on more of the holistic visual representations more than any other form of pattern recognition. Thus, their hypothesis was isolated parts of the face will be significantly more difficult to recognize than the whole face. So for experiment 1, they used intact faces versus scrambled faces. Subjects had to memorize intact faces and scrambled faces of 6 males prior to the actual test. Once the subjects learned them, they had a face recognition test. If normal or intact faces are recognized more holistically, then there should be a disadvantage in identifying isolated facial features compared to the whole face context. In the experimental design, this is pretty similar for all 3 designs. They used 21 psych students. They utilized the facial features such as eyes, mouth, and nose. Everything appeared at equal amount of time, and they counterbalanced everything so that there's no variability there. There was a learning trial where the face of the stimulus was spoken with the name, and then they had a test phase. So for experiment 1, as you can see, there's statistically significant between the intact faces. The whole faces was better recognized in the isolated part. And for the scrambled faces, the isolated part was more recognized in the whole face. This is opposite. The NOBU was statistically significant and reliable for intact faces, but not for scrambled faces. The main effect was significant as well. So for experiment 2, the inverted faces versus the upright faces, they're both based on a normal face. Our scrambled face is a good comparison. They wanted to have another thing to compare it with. So subjects had to memorize upright faces and inverted faces. This is all pretty much the same as the experiment 1 design. They've learned it, and then they had a recognition test for it. So if upright features of the face are better recognized through holistic representations compared to inverted faces, then there should be an advantage for participants in being more accurate identifying upright features in a whole face compared to isolated parts. So for experiment 2 design, again, the 21 psych students, they used the same facial features. There was a learning trial and a test phase, and everything appeared at equal amount of times. Experiment 2, as you can see for the inverted faces, is pretty much equal here, but for the upright faces, we have the whole face being more statistically significant than the isolated part. The ANOVA reported significant interaction. The main effect was reliable. So for experiment 3, the research used houses versus face, but both were upright. So they wanted to eliminate this upright conflicting variable so that it's distinct for face recognition compared to any other sort of object like a house. They used individual parts of the house in the experiment instead of features of the face, such as a door, a big window, and small window. Both the faces and house components and whole parts were both shown upright. If holistic processing is not limited to faces and is used for identifying objects, then there should also be a disadvantage in recognizing isolated house parts compared to the house parts in the entire house in general. So the experiment 3 design, as you can see, this is the small windows, the doors, and the big windows. Again, this similar design, 21 psych students. For the face, these were the same features. There was a learning trial, which they would be subjects to be shown the house and the owner's name for it. Then they had a test phase, and everything was shown in an equal amount of times. So for the houses, there is no statistically significance here. However, for the faces, again, we have the same pattern, which is the whole object is better recognized with the isolated part. The NOBU was statistically significant, and the main effect is reliable. So overall, for conclusions here, experiment 1 showed that intact faces are thus more holistically recognized than scrambled faces. For experiment 2, they showed that holistic processing is more utilized for upright faces compared to inverted faces. Experiment 3 proved in terms